Hollywood, den of iniquity, where the streets are paved with shit and homeless people in tents.
As you can probably tell, everyone, this is episode 23 of Echo on a True Crime Podcast.
I'm Christian.
And I'm not Chris.
Wait, shit.
He's
Christian?
I'm Christian. And welcome to Echo on a True Crime Podcast.
Oh.
He's Chris, by the way, in case you didn't realise. And this is episode 23, which is crimes in Hollywood or movies. Because, I don't know. They might not all be in LA. And they're not. Some of them are abroad. So it's crimes related to things about Hollywood. Right, so we're basically going to do what we normally do.
Hashtag no paedophile crimes, because that would be too obvious with Hollywood. I don't think, or is there? Oh no, did you do a paedophile crime again?
Yep.
Oh, there's a paedophile crime.
Sorry. Shit. When you try not to, what happens? One jumps in your notes. Well, but it's going to be a normal thing like our true crime tapas kind of style, where we're just going to throw stories at each other.
Yep.
And of course, I'll be throwing paedophiles, or just one. Just one. There's 1.5. And I'll do the half one first, which comes later in the story of Random Task. Do you remember Austin Powers?
Yes.
You remember the odd job guy, Random Task, who threw the shoe at him?
What kind of a man throws a shoe? That one.
And he died with the Swedish-made penis enlarger pump, or whatever the fuck it was called, and then thrown down some stairs. And that guy, he was called Joe Sun. And before he was Random Task, that was his big film role. He'd also starred in like shitty straight-to-video action things with Dolph Lundgren as bit parts. He had a UFC career. He had an amazing stat.
I just realised who that is.
His stats were 0 for 4. Basically, he got beaten 4 times. And he on his interviews in between, like before the match, he used to spout Bible quotes.
Yeah,
and
I think he would come to the cage with a big cross, wouldn't he?
In UFC 4, he did that. That's the guy.
I've just put 2 and 2 together of who that guy is. Like I've watched his fights. He was an interesting fella.
He wasn't particularly good. He's a South Korean, lived in LA. He was 5'4", weighed 230 pounds.
Wow. 5'4", around.
But Austin Powers was his last role. And that's 1997. In 2008, August, he got arrested for violating his parole for a felony vandalism conviction. Now, felony vandalism doesn't
sound very big.
It isn't. It's basically, if you do any sort of vandalism whatsoever and it costs over $400 worth of damage, it then becomes a felony.
Rather than a misdemeanor.
Yeah, basically, he probably could have slammed somebody's taxi door shut really hard and it broke and they said it was over $400 and then he got anything. It could have been of anything, but we don't know. I cannot find shit about what it was. But because of Prop 69 in California,
what's Prop 69?
It allows you to collect the DNA of any felon, anyone who's arrested. You can collect their DNA, and it's a fucking good idea, especially in this case because he broke his parole. They brought him in and arrested him. Got his DNA off.
I think I have a vague memory because I didn't know what Christian was going to talk about. I have a vague memory of this story. Yeah. I don't think it ends very well.
Oh no, it matched the DNA from a crime from December 1990. So before all of the UFC and before Austin Powers stuff, from Huntington Beach. It was an unsolved rape case at the time.
Yeah.
And basically, in 2011, a couple of years later, the trial started and info started to emerge of exactly what happened. Basically, it was a 19-year-old girl who was walking a dog after looking at some Christmas lights with her friends. And when she left her friends group, she was dragged into a car by Joe Sun and his accomplice, Santiago Lopez, I think it's Gayton, I think you pronounce it, who's from Texas, who was a friend. They violated and terrorized her for hours at gunpoint.
Mm-hmm.
They raped her, sodomized her, forced her to do things at gunpoint, and then raped her with the gun.
Yeah. That's the bit I remembered from the story.
The bit that after reading that, because I suppose I was so desensitized to things like saying, raped, and you don't really take it in. As soon as it got to the part where he says, and they poked her in the eyes, I went, ooh, like, oh, that's terrible. Not really on the scale of things. But
didn't see that coming.
I've never read that in a crime case where part of the abuse was strictly like they kept doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one. They kept. Can you imagine how fucking horrible that is?
Oh.
Like on top of everything else. She was also slammed to the ground repeatedly
Fucking
in
hell.
like UFC moves. And they kept saying they were going to kill her, saying she was. Joe said that she was his Christmas present.
Nice.
But then at the end of it, they let her go with the thing. It's Christmas and it's your lucky day.
Well, that is nice.
Basically, she had her underwear tied around her eyes as a blindfold. And they
Fuck's
shoved
sake.
her out. The dog was never found,
Oh.
which sucks. But the problem is, by the time they got DNA, the interesting part, statute of limitations have run out on all but 2 of the crimes.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Statute of limitations shit. Did no one see him when he was leaving his house? Did no one go like, "Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand?"
Oh, I enjoyed that.
No, that's awful. But yeah, the fucking statute of limitations. Because they didn't have the technology and they didn't have his DNA on record yet.
I know.
You
it's
feel
fucking
like
ridiculous.
it should be extended because pending new evidence.
Apparently not. But then again, they still got him. But as they wore masks and the woman never heard their actual names, the attorney argued that she couldn't state to a fact that they conspired to kill her.
Yep.
I can't really see the correlation in the masks and killing. Surely,
Yeah.
whatever. He was trying to say they're wearing masks. Obviously, they weren't trying to kill her, because otherwise, why wouldn't they wear them? Now, Gayton was sentenced to 17 years because he wasn't the main proponent of it.
Yep.
Son was guilty of torture. That's the only thing they could get him on.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was sentenced to life with no parole.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad that they, even though there was limited, they were limited what they couldn't try him for the rape cases and stuff, I guess, because of statute of limitations. But they still made an example and probably gave him the maximum penalty they could for kidnapping.
The torture thing is like very few people who have just a sole torture thing with no murder involved. They're very, very unlikely to get a full life tariff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So they
but
clearly,
this one, they knew.
They knew there was other things. We can't get him on those, but we can give him the maximum sentence.
And also, it didn't end there, because a month after he was in prison.
Yep.
This is where the half a pedo story comes in.
Oh, okay.
His cellmate was a 50-year-old child molester called Michael Graham. And one night, he killed him with a combination of kicks and punches.
Wait. Who?
Joe's son killed this guy. Combination of kicks and punches. They came to the door and found him standing at the front of the cell.
Yep.
And the guy was dead in the bed behind him. They didn't push for the death sentence. I don't know why. He was already on a life tariff, but he was sentenced to life plus 27 years.
So he's got life without parole plus life with plus 27 years.
Yep.
Wow. I bet because he's got a whole life sentence and he raped and tortured a 19-year-old girl. He probably wasn't very high on the totem pole in prison.
Yeah.
But there's still paedophiles are lower than him. So I bet he increased his his status in the prison by killing a nonce.
Yeah, and also he was probably it was probably a status thing.
Yeah. And he's not getting out, so
yeah. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Are they going to kill him? All right, then fair enough. But they're not. He's still there. He's still rotting away. Fuck you, Joe, son. Fuck you.
And also, I watched. I can't remember what it was. Some documentary I watched recently, and I can't remember what it was. And some guy asked for he did something in prison which commuted his sentence from life to the death penalty. And apparently he'd wanted the death penalty and they wouldn't give it. So then he did something else, and he said he did it to get the death penalty because he was already going to do life without parole. Yeah. He was already, however old he was, he's still going to be he's going to be on death row for probably 15, 20, 30 years, going through all of the processes, the appellate courts and stuff. While they're in there, and I think he was in prison for something like paedophilia or some low kind of
a lower crime that wouldn't have death penalty necessarily.
No. Sorry, no. I mean, within prison, a lower caste, he was not going to have a very good life in prison in general population anyway, because the prisoners didn't like him
because he's a nonce and he's a bad person.
And so he killed someone, and he said it is because he wanted the death penalty, because within death row, they're all death row inmates. So all of a sudden, what you've done other than you've done they don't care. So they're just death row inmates. So within that, he isn't a paedophile or a child abuser or a female murderer. He is a death row inmate, so they have a certain level of camaraderie. Yeah. Plus the food's
much
better,
which I don't get.
Pardon? No, I don't get that either. But yeah, so the food's better. They have better stuff in their cells, so he's living a better life. Knowing that he's going to die sometime, but he knew he was going to die in prison anyway, so he doesn't care.
Well, it's like, actually, this is going back to what we didn't cover in our last episode, which was about Serhiy Tkach, because I forgot to say it, but when he was first when he was first
yeah.
confessing, he said he wanted the death penalty.
Yeah.
And that could have been a reason why he started saying he killed that
Yeah,
many people.
absolutely. I meant to raise that. But the Ukraine had abolished the death penalty at that point.
Yeah,
they used to have it, and then they got
because they
rid.
were in the EU.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So
which we're soon not going to be.
no,
That's going to be fun.
everything's going to be better though.
No,
There's going to be more jobs.
Really?
More money.
Uh-huh.
Hundreds of £1 million every week for the NHS.
When we turn on the taps, does gold fall out?
If we want, we'll have a third line will be tapped in.
All right.
And we'll
so
have-
that'd be the gold
it'll
line.
just be gold,
The gold line,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So that was the story of Joe Son. Chris,
Joe, son of a bitch.
yes, regale me with your tale.
No, this one is you've come out hot, and it's going to be this. My one now is
I
going
don't
to
want
be
to come cold. That's just creepy.
disappointing.
Okay.
This is you might not have heard of him. He's a bit of a B movie actor.
Mhm.
He's not really done anything anyone's ever heard of. And I don't think his wife's very famous either. Matthew Broderick.
No.
Matthew.
No. So if you said Ferris Bueller, I might know who that is.
Matthew Broderick.
Yes. Who's actually probably, I would say, maybe, I think he's probably, at the time as well, more famous than the people I'm covering.
Absolutely. Matthew Broderick, currently married to Sarah Jessica Parker. But if I would take you way back.
To the way back.
1987. Matthew Broderick had just finished filming Biloxi Blues. And at the time, he was with his Ferris Bueller Day Off co-star Jennifer Grey. They were an item
From Dirty Dancing?
Yeah, she was just about to start the publicity rounds for her new movie Dirty Dancing. In fact, and they had a bit of time off together, so they thought, to be sure, let's fly to Ireland.
Oh no, not that accent.
No, they thought let's go to Ireland for a little while. We go hired a BMW 316.
Little jaunty adventure.
And planned to drive around Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, actually, they were.
Northern
Ireland, so, UK.
Oh, good on them. Good
so,
on them. That was a good, lovely story. Thank you.
That's quite nice. So at about 3:00 in the afternoon, they were lost. So he pulled into a petrol station or a gas station outside Enniskillen and asked for directions. An off-duty policeman told Broderick his route was, and I quote, just stupid. And offered to
just stupid.
Yeah,
that's not really.
It's just stupid.
He said this afterwards, not at the time, right? The guy didn't say, "I'm going this way," and he just looked at me. You're just stupid.
No, I think. Well,
or is this after?
The way I read it,
yeah,
an off-duty policeman told Broderick his route was just stupid, and he offered to lead them on the right road. But Broderick didn't want to listen. He was like,
"Oh, he's a little dick about it. Don't listen to the local people."
Yeah, he's like, "Nah, blood."
No, that's bare pain, bro.
Nah, allow it. I'm gonna go my own way, innit? But yeah, so he was like, "Nah, I don't want to." So this policeman, though, apparently followed him out for a little while. I think just to make sure he was like kind of okay. Yeah. So he was like he was driving along. Apparently, he wasn't. I mean, when the policeman followed him, he wasn't going particularly fast, like under 40 miles an hour. So he didn't seem like he was driving recklessly.
Yeah.
So a number of miles down the road, and there was a sudden downpour. Apparently, and there'd been a sudden downpour. The pair stops at another gas station because they wanted to get their bearings. Because once again, he was lost. This is 1987, so no sat nav, no GPS maps,
and in the middle of Ireland.
Yep. So rural country roads. Rural country roads. I don't know if you can have another kind of
industrial country roads.
Yeah. And so they pulled into a gas station or petrol station to get their bearings again. At this point, it had stopped raining, but the roads and stuff were still wet. So Broderick and his girlfriend at the time, they pulled out onto the road, onto an open country road. And it's speculated that he kind of went into autopilot and pulled over to the wrong side of the road.
Which 100% is completely understandable if you've ever driven in a country where it's on the right side of the road.
Absolutely. And even if you've driven for a few days, if your mind is on other things like, where the fuck am I? Yeah. It's very easy to go into autopilot and just start driving for a second automatically. And also, I'm imagining as well, like that road probably didn't have road markings on it.
If it was, no, it wouldn't. If you were outside a city, it would have just been country lanes. So it would have been quite narrow roads. So it's
probably like a 1.5 car kind of width where you've got to wait for passing.
So did this ended in a crash?
Passing places and things like that. So I'm just thinking from his perspective, probably wasn't that obvious.
Yeah.
So he was driving. So instead of the left, he pulled over to the right, they reckon. And less than a mile down the road, which had no curves and no obstructed view, so straight road, Broderick's car collided head-on with a Volvo driven by Anna Gallagher.
Wait, if it was a straight road,
I
can understand one person not seeing the other car. How the fuck did two people not see the car?
But maybe I wonder if they were looking at like maps and stuff. I bet
both at the same time.
Well,
just
probably. I bet they were like, oh, I wonder. Oh, the oncoming people. Maybe they didn't get a chance.
Or even if they did stop, they couldn't stop the other person.
No.
So really, Broderick could have been the one who stopped. No, he wouldn't. He would have said so because he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't he?
So Broderick's car collided head on with a Volvo driven by Anna Gallagher, 28, and Anna Gallagher's mother, Margaret Doherty, 63, and they were both pronounced dead on arrival at Erne Hospital. So, little known fact: Matthew Broderick killed someone. So
killed two people.
Killed two people. So Broderick was rushed to the same hospital with face cuts and a badly broken right leg. And there was a fireman.
Sam.
Who was on the scene. They said they had to cut Broderick out of his car to administer first aid, that his car was such a mess. And although he was in agony, apparently, he was his main concern was for the people in the other car. So, kind of fair play to him. And he kept saying, "Did I hurt them? Did I hurt them?"
Well, at least that's nice because it shows some, like, it's not like he's a dick.
No, he was like, shit. So Gray, just so you know, Gray was superficially bruised and she was okay, but she was covered in Broderick's blood.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. So you're there on holiday. Both careers are just, are taking off. And then
I wonder if that actually made them ruin their career, their relationship together.
Yeah, it's just a hell of a thing to go through, isn't it? You've got two people dead, Broderick with a broken leg, cut out of his car, and Gray just sat there covered in his blood.
This actually makes sense as like why after Dirty Dancing and why after even Biloxi Blues, their careers were like at the start of being. I mean, he was Ferris Bueller; it was going big, and he was still on the rise. So no wonder they sort of cut short. Really, I never actually thought about that's where they went. Like, where did Jennifer Grey go after that? She appeared recently on TV with a nose job.
Yeah,
and that was really it.
Yeah, she's had issues with mental health and stuff, I think, hasn't she?
Well, that event alone would be like enough.
Yeah, traumatizing. So obviously, the worst thing is the family that lost a daughter and
the mum,
and someone lost a wife and a daughter and sister or whatever. So it's brutal, but yeah, it's I
mean, 100%.
It's interesting.
It's a non-fault crime.
Yeah, it was an accident. He was not a murderer or anything. But it's a hell of a thing.
Which I'm kind of glad of.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a hell of a thing to go through. And it's like, I put a crime because I guess, someone died and it was fairly...
Well, it's actually...
Not necessarily that one.
That actually leads me really well onto my next one, which is as well not really a crime.
Okay.
But kind of is. It's basically about... It's 1910s, 1920s Hollywood.
Yes.
Hollywood.
Golden age of Hollywood.
Golden age. Silent film was obviously still a big thing. One of the biggest actors, directors, and writers at the time was Roscoe Arbuckle. He was, at the time, Paramount, in 1914, offered him $1,000 a day, plus 25% of the profits and artistic control. Now, bear in mind, $1,000 a day over 100 years ago that's fucking immense.
That's incredible.
They offered him, in 1918, they offered him a 3-year deal, which would have given him $3 million, which is equivalent to $50 million nowadays.
Nice.
So if you think of that kind of thing, he was basically getting paid like $5-6 a day just for doing what he wanted, and he could do anything. In 1916, he had health issues. He got a carbuncle on his leg so bad that he became addicted to morphine. This is just setting the scene of who he was, because most people would know him as Fatty Arbuckle.
Fatty Carbuncle.
Fatty Carbuncle. Basically, he was called Fatty Arbuckle, not because of the size he was when he was a major actor. Basically, when he was 12 years old, he was like 185 pounds. He was 13 stone. Yeah. So he's quite big.
That's a big kid.
But when I always thought Fatty Arbuckle was like 28 stone, like huge Goliath kind of thing. He was only 19 stone. Okay. He was just round and short. But he was literally the biggest star of the day. Nobody could eclipse him in the silent days. But then in 1921, on September the 5th, there was a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. And despite prohibition at the time, which was around, there was fuckloads of booze.
Obviously. What? Rich people in Hollywood getting prohibited substances?
Would you believe it? Would you have thunk it?
I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore.
No one. They're all clean.
Yep. They just alcohol, and if they're in California, marijuana, and that's it. No prohibited substances.
No. I don't think what you're
nothing noses. Nothing
noses. No, they haven't got noses anymore. They've collapsed.
Nothing up the nose. Well, yeah, yes.
Anyway,
noses and toesies, all gone.
The woman in question. Now, unfortunately, when I was a kid, I realised it's a horrible thing to laugh at.
I don't know what Christian's going to say, and I'm really nervous.
Her name is Virginia Rappe, Rappe, And all I could see as a kid was vagina rape. I'm sorry. It's just telling you.
Fuck's sake.
But no, because it leads into the story because I thought it was made up.
Oh,
because
okay.
of where it actually
So
comes
you
into.
thought... I love the... Sorry, I'm not laughing at the
This
crime,
is when
obviously,
I was like 15.
But I love like the 15-year-old you was like, they've made up a story to, to colour the good name of Fatty Arbuckle by coming up with a name that no one will guess is made up. Vagina rape.
Well, that's the whole point. The whole story is made up.
All right.
We're getting to that. Basically, they were both in a room together at one point in the evening.
So Virginia Rapé and Fatty Arbuckle, same room together.
They were in the same room at one point.
Yep.
Arbuckle left the room.
Yes.
Rapé was naked on the bed, writhing in pain. 4 days later, she died of a ruptured bladder.
That's not very nice.
That is the facts.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, there was a woman called Maud Delmont there, who is a massive piece of shit woman.
Wonderful.
She accused Fatty Arbuckle of raping Rapé and said that he dragged her into the room, saying, "I've waited for you for 5 years. Now I've got you." Then after 30 minutes, screams were heard. So Maud Delmont banged at the door. Fatty Arbuckle opened it with what she called a foolish screen smile.
A foolish screen smile.
Mm-hmm. and Rapé was naked on the bed in pain, claiming Arbuckle did it. So Arbuckle she went to the police about that.
Yeah.
Arbuckle handed himself in gladly.
Yeah.
However, Arbuckle and other people testified that he went to go to the bathroom in his room and found her in the bathroom vomiting. He and several other guests helped her to the bed, and they quickly summoned the hotel doctor, who said she was just drunk and had bad alcohol poisoning from bad bootleg whiskey, and then took her to another room to sleep it off, thinking it was just bad reaction. Turned out what actually happened, she had peritonitis, which resulted in the ruptured bladder, which peritonitis is the inflammation of the tissue around the abdomen.
Yep.
And were basically caused by bacteria and fungus. I looked at what it meant. And I was like, ugh, fungus. Ugh, that's gross. Yep. But anyway, so despite the evidence that he did not do anything.
So it's not just his word. There's
other guests.
The doctor, all these people.
So despite the evidence that was in his favour, and he was arrested, they kept him there for 3 weeks. The newspapers fucking leapt on it badly.
I'm glad that never happens anymore either.
Yeah, and they basically spread bullshit about what actually happened.
Extra, read all about it.
Now, this is going back to the story about I thought it was made up and it was just a name of vagina rape. Because I was told, and this is when there's a restaurant in England that used to be called Fatty Arbuckle.
I remember there was one in Feltham, Cineworld, Feltham I used to go to.
Now, I was told when I was a kid that Fatty Arbuckle raped a woman with a glass bottle. A broken glass bottle. That was what the story I heard, and she was called vagina rape. And that was what as a kid, what the story, how it got filtered down to me. But what actually, that was the bottle story some of the papers reported. Also, some of the papers reported her name was vagina rape. It was genuinely reported that way. And many other ways. One of the other ways was because he was so fat, he would lay on top of her while having sex with her and ruptured her bladder.
Yeah, I remember hearing that something similar to that
it's
once.
Utter,
as well.
Like, it's ridiculous that Delmont was so bad and so they couldn't prove shit. They didn't even want her testifying because she was such.
But she was the only one that.
Because they said
she's the only witness.
Her story was provably false.
Yes.
And she even
that would be an issue for the prosecution if the story is provably false.
But not even that. Let's say she thought she was telling the truth, for instance. Then she sent a telegram to her lawyer saying, "We have Roscoe Arbuckle in a hole. Here's our chance to make some money off him." Like, she's openly admitting in a telegram she's just wants money from him.
Yeah.
But the problem is it was all completely too late. Even the fact that his career was in ruins. He paid $700,000 in legal fees alone.
Back then
to get through it.
Of money.
Hollywood had already disowned him.
Yeah, he was blackballed, wasn't he? As soon as it came out, he was completely blacklisted or blackballed from the industry.
Yeah, like
wasn't he?
really bad. And even to the point where the courts realised how bad they did, they released a statement completely exonerating him and saying, "We are so sorry this happened to him. He literally did nothing. Yeah. He's a good guy. Please don't believe this." By that time, he was fucked. And then he couldn't get any jobs at all. So about sort of 5-6 years later, he got a couple of directing roles under the name William Goodrich. But then in 1933, aged 46, he died of a heart attack.
Oh,
so literally, Fatty Arbuckle was he was completely fucked over by.
That's awful.
I mean, it's the first example that I've seen of tabloid journalism ruining somebody's a celebrity's career.
Yeah,
But it's I find it astounding that because normally when we look at these things, we go, oh yeah, people at the time thought this and they were told this, but it's always I'm not involved in that.
Yeah.
But I actually heard one of those stories in the schoolyard that was perpetuated like 80 years after the fact.
literally
And they're still talking about it. Like,
10 years after the
there are
fact.
going to be still people saying 10 years, really? 10 years. But there's still going to be people talking about some of these lies.
Yeah,
saying, oh yeah, he
absolutely.
squashed her to death because he was so fat. Oh yeah, he used a broken buckle.
Because I didn't know who Fatty Arbuckle was until I went to the restaurant. And then I remember like mum and dad saying about it, and there was photos of him on the wall and stuff like that. And then I remember thinking, but I didn't know that he hadn't done something. I knew he'd been arrested for something, and I was thinking, why have they made a restaurant for this guy who killed a woman in a hotel?
But this is what you
and
think.
then years later, like looked it up and was like, he didn't do anything, and they ruined him. They absolutely ruined him, and he went from he was at the top of Hollywood, and then
literally the biggest person,
and then untouchable.
I mean, I think there's a one takeaway lesson from the whole of this. If your surname is Rapé, do not call your daughter Virginia.
Yeah, I mean
that's what I take away from this.
Yeah,
I think it's Rapé, but it didn't have an accent, so it might just be rap, R-A-P-P-E, no accent. So rap, brap. No,
Barap, Virginia Barap.
Are you looking up how to pronounce Rapé?
No, shut up. No, I'm not.
Shut up, bruv.
It's spelled out phonetically, but I always struggle with those phonetic spellings.
Oh, no, I can't do those because it always has weird accents, and you go, well, you don't tell me how to pronounce that. I need how to pronounce that pronunciation. Why can't they just do it as in like R-A-P or R-A-P-P-Y? Rappy? Could be Rappy.
I'll come back to that.
Yeah, well. But yeah, so that's my story of Fatty Roscoe Arbuckle.
So it's good. We've actually, of the three we've spoken about, 2 haven't been crimes in Hollywood.
Yeah, but no, they were. I think the 2 last ones were crimes.
Yeah.
But not for the reasons that they should be. One was a unintentional crime.
Yep.
The second one was made a crime falsely. But the thing is, but also from how people report it, like you look up celebrities who've killed people.
Yeah.
One of the first on the list is Matthew Broderick. When I think that's unfair.
I mean, yes, so do I.
Literally has killed someone because of something he was involved in, but you can't call him a murderer.
You assume your brain goes to, he murdered someone. So I have got someone called Johnny Lewis. He's
who's he?
An actor.
Not Johnny. That's Jerry Lee Lewis.
That's Jerry Lee Lewis or Jerry Lewis.
Oh, Jerry Lewis. Yeah. Yeah. So
Johnny Lewis.
He played half sack in Sons of Anarchy, I believe.
Oh, did he? I didn't know who he played. I've never watched it, but he was in Sons of Anarchy and a bunch of other stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a bit of a history of I'll get to the like kind of the ultimate crime, but
okay.
He did a few things. So starting from 2012.
So actually, it's quite. I mean,
this is very recent. Yeah. So starting in 2012, in 2012, this is the earliest thing I can find that he was involved in a violent interaction. Oh, fucking sake! In 2012, Lewis was involved in a violent altercation.
Yeah,
with 2 men who he allegedly attacked with a glass bottle. It says that he was. He said he was acting in self-defense, but he was ultimately.
Was he attacking with a glass bottle?
Yeah, he attacked them with a glass bottle. He said it was in self-defense.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they charged him with trespassing, burglary, and assault with a deadly weapon.
Wait, trespassing? That means he was trespassing.
He was trespassing and burglarizing and attack. So and that's the only details that I found for that. But to me, that sounds like he broke into someone's house.
Yeah. Started nicking shit. They started to maybe try and beat him up because he was on their thing or stop him. So he attacked him with a bottle and said, it's self-defense. Oh, that's like those burglars that get shot by the people they've broken into, and they go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to sue you for shooting me."
You shouldn't
be in my fucking house.
Yeah, but yeah, so
fucking hell.
So that's the first thing I find. That's 2012.
That's quite a big. That's probably an indication that he definitely has some issues.
Yes, yeah, it's not going well. While he was in, he was in jail after that, and while he was in jail, he apparently displayed issues that landed him in the psychiatric ward. And he looked
saying it was self-defense.
Yeah, he looked like he's been struggling with mental health, and at one point he did attempt to take his own life, which is really, really sad, and it shows that he had a lot of issues going on. He was later arrested once again for assaulting him outside of a yogurt shop.
Wait, one question.
Yeah,
there's actually shops that just sell yogurt.
Yeah.
Not like an ice cream parlor.
Do you reckon
a yogurt shop.
Do you reckon it's Froyo? I reckon it's Froyo. I bet he was in. I bet he's in WeHo having Froyo.
I hope it wasn't. I hope it was just standard yogurt.
Just yogurt.
Just yogurt.
Fucking yop shop.
Yeah. Fucking doesn't sound really weird. A yogurt shop. So
I know.
So he beat someone up
outside of a yogurt shop. I think the yogurt shop isn't important, but I kept it in because it was
kind
funny.
of is. So he beat someone up. Do we know any reasons why? Or?
No, I couldn't find anything on that either. But all I could find the reportings with that. And he so he was arrested for that and apparently attempted suicide once again after that.
Hell.
So he's obviously
that leads to he has regrets of what he does. So he's obviously
like
if it's after one, you'd go, oh, it's just probably coincidental. But if it's after both crimes he's been arrested for, proves that he's regretting what he's done.
Yeah. He also, after this case, this instance, he also he was arrested again for trying to break into a woman's apartment. So I can't find any more history on that, but he obviously didn't succeed.
Was he a druggie? Because I know normally when you break someone's apartment, it's normally because you want to get things to sell to get drugs.
So I think he has a history of substance and alcohol misuse, which I don't know why we go substance and alcohol. It's all substances and it's misuse. So yeah, he misused drugs.
Yeah.
He's got a history of that. But I found this really interesting. So in the year before his erratic, so he already displayed erratic behaviour, but then it grew violent. This behaviour started to grow violent. And the year before it grew violent, he was involved in a motorcycle accident that left him with head trauma. Now, this is something we've talked about before, like
it's Fred West.
The Fred West
and all the others.
Case, and a lot of the others as well. One of the others we covered more recently, we actually didn't talk about the head trauma, but Peter Sutcliffe, we did. I don't think we mentioned it, but he also had head trauma as well, the Yorkshire Ripper. So Johnny Lewis, he was already showing erratic behaviour, which could potentially be put down to like drug abuse and things. Was involved in a motorcycle accident, had head trauma, and then his behaviour that grew more violent.
Yeah.
And that would explain a lot of like the mental health issues, the erratic behaviour, the suicidal ideation.
It would.
Things like that. Like it helps to explain a lot of the shift in his behaviour. So all of this happened. He was scheduled apparently multiple times to have MRIs. So to have his brain scanned, to have a look and see, because that way they can, see if there's any lesions, any marks, scarring on the brain, and it would help to point to any issues. But apparently his father was quoted as saying that he pursued and encouraged psychiatric treatment for his son, but Johnny refused to comply. So he says absolutely not.
Probably was worried that it will find something.
That's true. Yeah, it's probably scary. It must be scary. Ignorance sometimes.
It's like when you have pain in your stomach, you could go to the doctor, but you're in the back of your head, you're going, well, I've got cancer now.
Yeah, it's definitely cancer. So all of this happened, and this is the last bit of his story, which happened in 2012. So all of this happened over the space of about a year. Yeah.
Oh, fucking, that's a horrible year to have.
Johnny Lewis broke into the home of his landlord, 81-year-old Catherine Davis, and ransacked her home. He then killed her and killed her cat.
What? Why would he kill her cat?
I don't know. Witnesses then say that Lewis jumped over a fence, assaulted a neighbour, and then returned to Davis's house. He then went up on the roof, and they don't know what, either fell or jumped and died.
I would personally, after what you've just said of like the history, the brain trauma, these past acts, he jumped.
I reckon he jumped, yeah.
It's involved a garage. It can't be that high. I mean, he died. It worked. But if you were going to jump off something in a garage, I think it was
because I think it was an apartment, so I don't know whether it was an apartment block or what. But
it's about to go like a single-story garage.
But also, what I read was that he hit his head on the concrete, so people die hitting their head like from standing.
Yeah,
if people get knocked out.
If he was going to kill himself, jump down head first.
Yeah. So apparently, he died, and from that, which is really sad.
That just gave me shivers. I just imagine jumping.
So
oh fuck.
But as we said before, he did have a history of drug use, but the autopsy report, which would have had a toxicology report in it, showed no drugs or alcohol in his system when he died, which is
also
almost really sad. Like it seems like he was clean at that time, but he'd had head trauma, mental health issues. He needed help, man.
I mean, he broke into their house for a reason, so it wasn't that if he's not got no drugs in his system, it wasn't to get money for drugs.
No, I wonder if he was just paranoid because he was having mental health issues. But one other thing, just to add to this, which is kind of interesting, he was born into a Scientologist family.
Ooh,
and he had
to do with it.
And he had worked for the church's drug rehab group, Narconon. And I don't know if anyone knows about Narconon. Have we talked about Narconon on this?
I don't think
I can't remember because we haven't done a Scientology episode.
We will do.
Narconon is their the drug rehab group, and they don't believe in psychiatric help, psychology, psychiatry. They believe it was invented by the Nazis.
Because they're fucktards.
Because so they it's very questionable. We'll talk about it in detail another time. If not, if you want, you can just look it up now. But they use very questionable methods. But it's very interesting that he worked for Narconon and then became a drug addict and refused psychiatric help.
And it was weird.
That's another thing. Like his dad, he was born into Scientology, but his father apparently encouraged him to get help. So his father obviously saw his son and was like, "Oh, actually,
everything I've known is bollocks. Let's try something else."
And I wonder if Johnny had also had a thing in his brain going, "Well, I was raised to believe that this is science this is like Nazi science."
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's Johnny Lewis.
But there was a little addendum to that. Kurt Sutter, the guy that made Sons of Anarchy, released a statement after saying, "It's so sad, but it's not surprising." So obviously during filming, there was issues. Whether I don't know what about it, but I find it weird that after somebody's died, and yes, of a bad thing, and he killed someone, and it's fucking horrible, but coming out and saying that, I just found a bit questionable. Even though even though we're talking about him like he's a nice guy and it's just a shame, he still killed someone.
That's true.
It's still fucking awful. But,
yeah, it's true. But I guess he knew the human being.
Yeah.
And
probably thought he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, he died. So he was not, but his life as well. He was born in 1983, died in 2012. He was only 29.
Fucking hell.
He did. So he had a hell of a year. Yeah, poor guy.
All right.
What have you got
for my next one? I have got. I'll leave it up to you. Do you want a story with helicopters or a story that questions the nature of forgiveness?
Helicopters.
Helicopters.
Always helicopters.
I'm going to take you back to 1982. On the set of the film The Twilight Zone.
Ooh.
Yep. Steven Spielberg produced, John Landis directed segment.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. Oh! There was an actor called Vic Morrow, who was the father of the actress Jennifer Jason Leigh. In a story that he was playing in this segment, he played a racist man who's transported back to the Vietnam War. But then through mending his ways, he decides to rescue some Vietnamese kids from this war zone that breaks out. The scene would have been absolutely huge. It was filmed from multiple angles, a single shot. Yeah. He had to run through carrying two Vietnamese children waist high in water while explosions, pyrotechnics, everything was going off around him. Helicopters flying over. It was a big thing.
Loads of pewing.
But John Landis and the producers, circumventing child labor laws in one part because they hire the kids without a contract. They were working past 2:30 a.m., which is the legal requirement for kids. They also, Landis refused to do the standard thing when you need to have a dangerous stunt, what's considered a dangerous stunt. When a dangerous stunt in Hollywood is anything like running when something else is happening. For children of a certain age, that's considered a dangerous stunt. For this, there was helicopters around, explosions. It would have been considered very dangerous, and he didn't want to use little people, which was what the standard thing in Hollywood, and still is at the time. When you have someone of diminutive stature like a child, you replace them with someone, an adult, who happens to be the same size.
Baby's Day Out.
Vern Troyer
did the stunts. He was a stunt baby.
But I completely get, like, from a realistic point of view, where you go, well, no, it's not going to be. I'm not going to use a little person there because you can tell the difference, which a lot of the time you can. And he had to carry one in each arm. But also the kids that, as I said, didn't have work permits. They were hired illegally. The shot, as I said, was planned from multiple angles. He had to run through the waist-high water. Landis wanted this stunt helicopter that a lot lower than it was, which it was originally 24 feet above the water. He wanted it down a bit lower because it wasn't in shot enough. So Morrow was running with the kids. Renee Chen, who was 6, she was a girl, and Micah Dinley, who was 7 and was a boy. The parents were on set watching this happen. After an explosion ripped through the tail rotor, the helicopter lost control and the rotor blades fell straight onto Vic Morrow and the kids, ripping them to pieces. And it was filmed from every angle.
It's brutal.
I will not recommend it, but if you'll be able to find online, it's already available on YouTube in very clear quality because it was shot in 35mm.
Yeah, the footage is out there.
You can see the footage. It is staggering. I can't say anything. It's literally, it's disgusting. It's like the sheer level of tragedy there.
Yeah.
But then came the lawsuits because who was to blame? Like,
see, I know the story up to this point, so I knew when you said the
Twilight
Zone movie helicopter. I realized what that was, and I know the story. And yeah, we won't post a link to it, but you can find it if you want to.
I mean,
maybe get some eye bleach ready. Have a photo of a kitten playing with some yarn or something.
I'll tell you now, you cannot see in clear quality what happens.
But because you know what's happened and you see the explosion, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know this bit.
Well,
so this is
Landis. This is one of the biggest court cases in Hollywood history. Landis and 4 others were charged on 3 counts of manslaughter, and it was in front of a grand jury as well. And at the same time, civil suits were being raised against Warner Brothers by the families of the deceased people. Landis and everyone else was cleared on all charges after years of courts because they couldn't pinpoint who to blame. Spielberg claimed he was not on set, but there are many witnesses who claim he was.
Yes.
There's actually a witness story that says as soon as it happened, Spielberg walked off, got in his car, and drove off.
I bet he was whistling like a nonchalant tune as well, just so no one suspects him.
And then a lot of people say, was it the explosion guy's fault? Where the explosion went wrong, hit the rotor blade? Was the helicopter pilot who wasn't trained enough to be able to...
Is the explosion guy like the pyrotechnic expert?
Yes. No, he was called the
explosion guy.
Explosion guy. The pilot, or was it Landis demanding
Mr.
that the helicopter
XP Lotion?
I really hope it's that. Yeah, basically, so at the end of the day, Landis just had to pay the fine for hiring kids illegally, as did Spielberg.
That was all they...
But the civil lawsuit settled for $2 million each per family, which is still a lot less. But then Landis's defense was, the final authority is not mine. Because if I ask an actor, if I said, would you please put your hand into this garbage disposable? The actor is going to say, of course not. It's like that, you cannot say that. Like, you are in charge. Spielberg did not speak to Landis again. But there is a really good thing that happened because of this tragedy.
Yeah.
Laws afterwards started changing the way people, like directors, were told to handle. So the Directors Guild of America started publishing more safety guidelines to their directors. They provided professionals to assist in safety issues on set.
Okay. Cool.
Now, this sounds like that's a shit thing to do. Like, we're just going to give some guidelines and give directors some help from professionals when they need it. But in the 4 years that followed, accidents on set fell by 70%.
Oh, that's incredible.
But 6 people still died on sets during that time. So things were learned.
That is good.
A fucking horrible tragedy.
Oh, the thing that Landis said about if I asked an actor to
put his hand in the garbage
disposal, he wouldn't do it because blah blah blah. But there's a difference there.
Yeah.
Putting your hand in the garbage disposal,
you'll lose your hand.
You lose your hand, and there's no, unless it's there's no trickery involved. If you're with a helicopter behind you and you're running with kids under your arm, you're trusting, all you can control is you're not going to fall over and hurt these kids, and that's what you're doing. Well, you're trusting the pyrotechnics guy, you're trusting the helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you're trusting the director and the company or whatever around you that hired these people that control that. You're an actor. You're not a stunt coordinator. You're not a pilot. You're not you're not Mr. XP Lotion.
Well, then it's the same as saying if I told these actors to put this hand in a fake garbage disposal.
Yes, and then it turned on and it was real.
Yeah, like that. That's basically what.
The Crow.
The Crow.
Brandon Lee. You didn't go, well, he could have said, no, I'm not going to put this because maybe I'll die by accident.
Yeah,
that's what a knob. That's so fucking stupid.
I get he has been, and that was at the time.
Yeah,
he has in later years. He doesn't talk about it, but he did on, I think it was Entertainment Tonight program, and he said it's a thing that stays with him his life, and he it haunts him every day.
Absolutely,
of course it does.
But he should have kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, but I think he was not necessarily. I think there's a mixture of things that ended the tragedy. I don't think you can blame just him.
Oh no, absolutely.
There was a lot of things that went wrong. They shouldn't have hired kids, but then even if they didn't, and they had little people,
just
still die.
Yeah,
nothing's changed.
No, that wouldn't have.
Breaking child laws, still nothing changed. No. Another time of day. No, the accident still happened. The guy.
Lots of things like that. We'd learn about this at work. Alex will like this, but they call there's various different things like the Swiss cheese model, for example, things like that, where all the holes line up. So if you've got all these safety things in place, and if you get through one hole of the Swiss cheese, you won't go any further because the next thing will pick it up. But this was a perfect storm, and everything happened at the same time, and it caused this.
I mean, you've got to bear in mind that if an explosion hits a tail rotor, the helicopter pilot is trained to do a certain movement if the tail rotor goes. It's part of the training you'll do, so he'll know which way to turn. Just so happened he turned the wrong way, which is against his training, and it happened to be right in the path. Like, it isn't like it took a lot. It went straight down on them, 100% right on them.
Yeah. There was no time for.
And it was a terrible
anything.
accident, and of course it haunted him. But John Landis was such a dick at the time about it, the way he spoke quite callously about it, saying, well, it's not my fault. It's like, take responsibility for what was on your set.
Yeah.
But don't take blame for it, but be contrite at least.
Yeah, absolutely,
Later years, yes, he has been contrite about it.
If I told him to jump off a cliff, they would have done it.
Yeah, well,
nah.
fucking twat. But yeah, so now we've got...
Felicia Pearson.
Who's she?
She's an actress from The Wire.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Which
she recommended?
Yes, I'm only on season 2. I'm quite a few years behind, but it's really good. So don't ruin it. But
they all die.
What?
I don't know. Probably Butler did it. Gerard Butler did it.
Anyway, so Felicia Pearson, she's an actress and rapper apparently, and she appeared on The Wire. But I think she didn't really act before that. Like she was the guy that plays Omar.
Oh yeah.
Saw her in, I think it was in a club or whatever, and spoke to her and said you should come and.
Oh, fucking hell.
Act.
All right, fair enough.
So,
also, wait, this is a guy that actually went, hey, are you an actress? I could make you a star. And literally did.
But Felicia Pearson,
Good guy.
when she was 14 years old.
Okay, she wasn't that young in the show.
No. So this is before the show,
yeah.
like before she was ever I should have made that clear. Before she ever had any fame, before she was known.
Before she met Omar.
And she was 14, this happened. So just to give a bit of background, actually, it's kind of interesting. Felicia Pearson, nicknamed Snoop. Apparently, she weighed only 3 pounds when she was born. She was a crack baby.
Oh.
And she was born to, to no parents. Like she biologically had parents, but both her mother and father were incarcerated at the time of her birth.
Oh.
So she shouldn't have lived. She was 3 pounds, addicted to crack, and survived. So that's impressive. So on April the 27th, 1995, when Pearson was 14 years old, there was a fight. A fight broke out. And the fight resulted in the death of 15-year-old Akia Tuma. He died of a gunshot wound that night. So there was a fight occurred. She was around. This 15-year-old boy died. Pearson was the one who pulled the trigger.
But she was 14.
Yeah.
She shot him.
She was tried as an adult.
Oh, fuck.
As well. At 14, they tried her as an adult, which, even though she was 14, I still have a bit of an issue with, particularly when you put into context the kind of life that she had and things like that. But yeah, so she was tried as an adult. They convicted her of second-degree murder and sentenced to 8 years in Jessup State Prison.
Fucking hell.
So she...
literally must have just been...
Did
she serve her whole sentence? I don't think she could have done, could she? Because I think The Wire's 2001, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. So she would have been, 95, so she would have come out in around 2002, 2003.
Oh, yeah, she was in the later
2004,
series,
and she was in the later series.
So literally, he walked out and saw her in the club.
Yeah. So she went to prison when she was 14, probably 15 by the time she went to prison, served her 8 years or whatever, came out and got cast really quickly.
Fucking hell. After so much of a shit life.
And she had such a shit start to life, and she did kill someone.
Yeah.
And you can't
say
that's okay and everything, and they got her for second-degree murder, and someone died. But I still have a little sympathy for her because she was probably looking for family and looking for people to hang around with.
You look at like modern life, where the modern day and age, where you'll do a tweet saying a joke that is not very funny, and your whole career is ruined. Back in like the 2000s, you kill someone, you can get a job.
She killed a boy. But then, on March the 10th, 2011...
Okay, so this is way after the
so this is much afterwards. So she had a shit start to life.
Had a bit of a break.
Did well for a bit. Then in 2011, Pearson and 60 others were arrested and charged with 60 were arrested and charged with drug offences. The arrest was made during a pre-dawn raid at her home in Baltimore. So also, I found that really interesting. She actually lived in Baltimore, which is where The Wire was set.
Or did she move to Baltimore so everyone recognised it?
Maybe, yeah. Following a 5-month DEA operation.
60 people.
So if you've, like, spoiler alert, but if you've watched the first series of The Wire,
you know how this is going down.
That's what happened to her. That's exactly what the first season...
She must have watched it. They're going, I'll get you on The Wire. Oh, can I borrow some DVDs? There you go. Oh, well, I won't do that then.
No, and then did that.
Because fucking hell.
I hadn't occurred to me till I'm reading it out now. I was like, shit, that's the first season of The Wire. They did months and months of
stings
and wiretapping and everything until they got a bunch of people.
But 60 people, that is a big fucking gang.
At the first hearing, this confuses me and I'm going to read it out. At the first hearing after Pearson's arrest, Judge John Addison Howard denied her bail. Actually, no, it doesn't make sense. He denied her bail because of her acting ability.
What? But they thought she wasn't contrite. She was like putting this on.
And so he said, well, you can change your appearances. I've seen the episodes of The Wire in which you appear. You look very different than you do here today. I'm not talking about the jumpsuit. I'm talking about your general appearance. So he was like, if we give you bail, you can just disappear and pretend to be someone else and look differently.
Because you're like an amazing, you're fucking like method actress.
Yeah. So denied her bail.
Sake.
After a month in jail, Pearson was offered a bail of $50,000.
Could she pay that? She was in drugs, so...
On April the 8th, 2011. Well, you get a bondsman, don't you?
Yeah.
And they put it up and then you owe them a shit ton of money. That was April 8th, 2011. In August 2011, she pleaded guilty to the charges the day before her trial was to begin. And she was given a suspended sentence, a suspended 7-year prison term and credit for time served, and given 3 years of supervised probation. Okay. So she, Pearson, murdered, like secondary murder, whatever, manslaughter.
Spent 8 years.
Spent 8 years. Got famous for a bit.
Redid the story from the first series of the series.
Series that she was in, but from the bad guy, from the perspective of the bad guy. After a 5-month operation, got arrested, pleaded guilty, suspended sentence, criminal record.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Marilyn? Has that got the 3 strikes and you're out rule?
I don't know. To be fair,
no, it should be called 3 strikes and you're in. Surely.
Oh, actually, sorry, I've got a little bit for the secondary murder.
Oh, yeah?
She was actually sentenced to, because I've got various bits of information saved. She was actually sentenced to, though she was sentenced to 2 consecutive 8-year terms.
Oh.
She was released after 6.5 years. But even so the murder happened in 95. Say she went to prison in 95, 96. She served 6.5 years, so that's 2002-ish.
So yeah, that would be.
So she was still only out for probably had only been out for a couple, 3 or 4 years.
She wasn't out when the first series of The Wire was out, so she wouldn't have seen the story.
Oh, she didn't know. She didn't know what they were going to do. But anyway, so that's Felicia Pearson. Shit. Had nothing, had it all, had nothing again. Well done, good work.
Swings and roundabouts. Still killed someone.
Last one from you, Christian.
Last one. It's the question of forgiveness.
Oh, okay. Let's go with this.
Now we're going with somebody who was he's a director. He started out his first job was as a childcare worker. 1986. Victor Salva. He made a short film which impressed Francis Ford Coppola.
Okay.
So much so, he in turn produced Victor Salva's first film, Clown House. Just a standard horror film, nothing particularly great about it or anything. He then, when he was 28, as the director, cast 12-year-old Nathan Winters in the lead role. During the shot, his mum was trying to get on set, but Victor Salva was blocking her from coming on set, saying, you can't come on set. You're going to distract him.
Just to be clear, Victor Salva is the director.
Nathan Winters is the 12-year-old kid.
Is the 12-year-old kid, and Nathan Winters' mother was trying to get on the set, and he said no because you'll distract him. Okay, so I just wanted to be clear in my head of the actors, the players in this.
And he was basically blocking her, saying you can't, you'll distract him.
Yeah.
In the end, she sat down with the kid, and the kid broke down crying and explained what was happening. So she went straight to the police after her son told her.
Good mum believed her son, which is good.
But yes, they raided Victor Salva's house, and they found child porn. And a video of showing Salva engaged in oral copulation with the 12-year-old boy.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So 1988, he pleaded guilty to 5 felony counts of lewd and lascivious conduct, oral copulation with a minor, and 3 counts of procuring child porn. He got 3 years. He went to jail.
He only got 3 years?
He only got 3 years.
For fuck's sake.
He went to jail. He was released after 15 months. Now, while in jail, he was beaten almost to death.
Good.
He was a model prisoner.
Don't care.
But then again, you're there for 15 months and most of you are going to be sucking through a straw.
Yeah.
Sucking food through a straw.
Yeah.
Anyway, Winter's family sued Francis Ford Coppola's production company for $5 million. They ended up having to settle for less than $100,000, which she was not too happy about. She was called Pamela. She wasn't very happy at all. The excuse that Victor Salva gave as to why all this happened is his stepfather was abusive towards him and he was terrorized in his own home for being gay. That is not a reason to try and have sex with children.
No, not at all. No. So I've never heard of a good reason to have sex with the children, but that's certainly one of the many bad reasons.
It's a bad reason. And basically, while he was in jail for that time, I mean, I actually find this impressive. Like, bear in mind, sucking through food through a straw for most of it.
Yep.
He wrote 5 separate screenplays in that time.
Jesus.
He did well. And one of them was a screenplay called Powder, which was not about coke, which was then on his release in 1995, way after his release, was going to be made by Disney, directed by him. Bear in mind, Disney, the same people who fired James Gunn for doing doing stupid joke tweets. Yeah.
When he was working for Troma?
Yeah.
Was it?
Exactly.
Yeah. It was fucking,
But yeah, so they hired him, and Powder is a story about a genderless kid who's like all pale, and he's called Powder and is an alien or whatever, bollocks. But yeah, so at that time, people started protesting. It was out in Hollywood, like all these newspapers, Variety reporting, going, "Oh my god, a paedophile!"
Did you say this was 95?
This is 95. Because despite Nathan Winters then, at that point, raising protests about it, Hollywood and Disney still hired him, and people still hired him for things. So
doesn't it just show? Sorry, I just cut you off a second though. Just doesn't it show that Hollywood, Disney, everything, they don't care.
Nope.
They only care when it's public enough that they have to care.
Yep.
They don't actually give a shit. There's no morality there. They don't care.
No.
But just as like
it's only when there's outrage.
If enough of the right people show outrage, they'll pretend they give a shit.
Yeah.
Like Hollywood knew what Weinstein's been doing for fucking years.
Yep.
And I'm sure Disney knew what those tweets were before.
100%. No, he
told them. And they only give a shit when it looks bad if they don't.
Well, basically, when Powder was out, when it was after out, they didn't stop its release. It still made like $40 million in the box office. It was a hit for the time for the kind of film it was.
Yeah.
Crew members said that Salva always hung around the child extras, inviting them to his trailer and things like that. Around the release of Powder, Victor Salva did, in an interview, say, "How deeply I regret my actions. I paid for my mistakes dearly. Now, 10 years later, I'm excited about my work as a filmmaker and look forward to making a positive contribution to the industry." To be fair, all right, fair enough. He actually apologized and he addressed it. And in later interviews, he has talked about it, saying it was the worst mistake of my life. I can't believe he did that, blah, blah, blah. Fine.
Yes.
He has been contrite about it. I can't say he hasn't. But in 1995, which is going back to what you were saying about Disney, he said, this is at the same time as Powder, but for a different interview. He said, "My God, if they were to take the arrest records of every filmmaker and actor, they'd have to shut this town down. Let's face it, anyone can work here who makes money."
Exactly.
Which is exactly what it was.
It.
And that's the thing of like, he has gone on to make Jeepers Creepers 1, 2, and 3. Each time there has been things in the media, and the latest one, because one of the storylines in Jeepers Creepers 3, the main actor is supposed to be 13 years old, but they've got an 18-year-old playing it because, he wouldn't be allowed to be around. But he got that, and the child's story is that he was abused by his stepfather. And the outrage was about that, saying, how could you have that in a script? Because you yourself is a convicted paedophile, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't have a problem with that. It's like, no, that's a film. Do what the fuck you want. It's entertainment. Just because it is related to the story he had, there's no evidence that he has done anything else.
Yeah, and
he has paid time, even though only 15 months.
Yeah, I know it's not very long, but that's what the law permitted, or that's what the law gave him. The thing is, so I feel piece of shit, and no matter what he does for the rest of his life, he's a paedophile piece of shit. So like, I don't feel bad for him in any sense. But the other side of it, which I guess what you were getting at before, about forgiveness and stuff, is like he should be allowed to work like everyone should be able to work. He's paid his debt to society. He's a piece of shit. He shouldn't be allowed to work with children.
No, I mean, as a producer, if I was in Hollywood and there was a script came up and it said Victor Salva, automatically I go, I'd rather not.
I don't want to work with him.
I mean, it's not like I'm not saying he hasn't served his time and hasn't been contrite and hasn't not necessarily made good. You can't, because Nathan Winters is still going to be forever scarred by that.
Yeah.
But because he has paid the time that the courts deemed the right amount of time and he's paid his price, I don't think he should be punished anymore for it. But at the same time, I personally never want to work with a paedophile.
No, absolutely. So I think I have kind of two answers, I guess. Is one, I know I don't forgive him, and people shouldn't forgive him because he's a paedophile piece of shit. But he should also be allowed to work.
Yeah, I mean, it should be basically down to the individual person.
He wouldn't, like, if someone, any Joe Blogs off the street gets just done for the same thing that he's got done for, they're not going to be able to be a teacher, a scout leader, anything, work with children, work with vulnerable people, because they're not going to get a criminal record check. And the same rules apply to him. But they can get a job. And if any employer would employ them, as long as they're following the rules and following the law and not letting them work with children who are and vulnerable people, that's whether I find it distasteful and uncomfortable. is irrelevant
Yeah,
at that
100%.
point because he's allowed to work.
That brings us to the end of.
That is the end of crimes in Hollywood. If you guys out there, both of you, no, if you guys out there have anything else that you want to like, you think would be interesting to us, whether it's related to crimes famous people have done, whether it's just an interesting crime you've seen, whether it's an in-depth tale, or whether it's just a little tidbit of something you've seen locally that's kind of interesting. Let us know.
You can do it in a comment. You can send us a message on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
You know, if you send it to us, we'll credit you as having sent it to us. Don't worry, we won't steal it for ourselves. Well, we'll steal it for ourselves, but we'll credit you.
Oh yeah,
we won't pretend that we found it.
We won't hire people to write our script for us as well.
No, won't do any of that. So, but please, like, share stuff, find stories. There's a lot out there, and sometimes I don't know about you, but I get kind of can't see the wood for the tree sometimes because there's so much out there when we're looking for episode ideas,
especially
and things like that.
As a side kind of thing, like the sort of not see the forest through the trees. We were like looking for future episodes and thinking of like what ones could we do. Yeah, and I just got this collection of books that have like there's 120 different murderers in it, and literally I've heard of like 3 of them beforehand. We're going, oh, who do we do? I mean, I don't.
What should we talk about? I don't know.
We're trying to go. Well, let's go for some more unknown ones. I don't know. I literally don't know.
And then we look through this book and we're like, oh, there's a lot of bad people around that we've never heard of.
And they're not even like small ones. It's like body count of 250 people. You're like, what the fuck? But yeah, so please send us your ideas. We have a couple of ideas that people have sent us previously that are going to be in the queue.
We haven't forgotten about you guys. Don't worry.
So at EchoOnPod on all your socials. Go to www.echoonpod.com and
please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes.
I've been Christian.
I've been Chris.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.